I bought an ancient dragon artifact the world had forgotten, and a voice called my name. Marcus Chen walked through the crowded marketplace on Station Meridian. The trading post floated at the edge of known space, where dozens of alien species came to buy and sell their goods. Colorful lights flickered above the stalls, and the air smelled like a mixture of spices and machine oil. Marcus was a student of ancient history. He studied old civilizations and forgotten cultures from across the galaxy. Most people thought his work was boring, but Marcus loved discovering stories that others had forgotten. Today was his day off, and he wanted to explore the old antique shops near the station's outer ring. The first few shops sold the usual items: broken tools from mining colonies, faded paintings from worlds Marcus had never heard of. Nothing caught his attention until he found a small shop tucked between a food vendor and a repair station. The shop owner was a Vexian, one of the crystal-skinned people from the northern sectors. She sat behind a counter, reading something on a glowing screen. She barely looked up when Marcus entered. "Feel free to look around," she said in a tired voice. Marcus browsed the shelves slowly. Most items were covered in dust. There were old books, strange devices, and containers filled with objects he couldn't identify. Then, on a bottom shelf in the corner, he saw it. The sphere was about the size of his fist. Its surface was dark metal, covered in swirling patterns that seemed to move when he looked at them closely. Marcus picked it up carefully. The metal felt warm in his hands, warmer than it should be after sitting on a cold shelf. "What is this?" Marcus asked, holding it up. The Vexian glanced over and shrugged. "No idea. Found it in a shipment of junk from a dead world. Been sitting there for years. Nobody wants it." He paid quickly, worried the shop owner might change her mind. As he left the shop, he held the sphere carefully in his bag. Something about it felt important, though he couldn't explain why. Back in his small apartment on the station, Marcus cleared a space on his desk. He lived in student housing, a tiny room with a bed, a desk, and a wall screen for his studies. He placed the sphere on the desk and sat down to examine it. The patterns on the surface were like nothing he had seen before. They weren't from any language in his database. Marcus tried scanning the sphere with his research tools, but the readings made no sense. The metal was old, very old, but the computer couldn't identify what it was made from. Hours passed as Marcus studied the object. He took pictures from every angle. He measured its weight and temperature. He even tried speaking to it in several ancient languages, feeling a bit foolish as he did. Nothing happened. Finally, tired and hungry, Marcus decided to take a break. He ordered food from the station's delivery service and ate while reviewing his notes. The sphere sat on his desk, dark and silent. Maybe it was just an interesting paperweight after all. As night's cycle began on the station, Marcus prepared for bed. He dimmed the lights and lay down, but sleep didn't come easily. His mind kept returning to the sphere. There was something about it, something he was missing. Then he heard it, a voice, soft and distant, speaking his name. "Marcus." It was coming from inside his mind, like a thought that wasn't his own. Marcus turned on the lights and looked at his desk. The sphere was glowing. Soft amber light pulsed from within the metal, making the swirling patterns dance across its surface. "Don't be afraid," the voice said, and now Marcus could hear it clearly. It was deep and ancient, like the sound of wind moving through deep caves. "I mean you no harm, young human." Instead, he felt curious and strangely calm. "Who are you?" Marcus asked out loud. "My name is Kelvaroth," the voice replied. "I am the last of the celestial dragons. What you hold is my heartstone, the vessel of my essence. For 10,000 years I have waited in silence, drifting from world to world, owner to owner. None could hear me, but you, Marcus Chen, you have awakened me." The galaxy had legends about dragons, ancient beings of great power who had vanished long ago. Most people thought they were just stories, myths created by primitive cultures to explain things they didn't understand. "You're real," Marcus whispered. I am real, Kelvaroth confirmed. Or at least I am what remains. My physical form is gone, scattered across the stars, but my consciousness, my memories, my voice, these remain within the Heartstone. And now we are connected, you and I. What does that mean? Marcus asked. Connected how? It means we have much to discuss, and very little time to waste. The dragon's voice filled his mind with stories of a time before the current galactic civilization. We were not born as other creatures, Kelvaroth explained. The celestial dragons came into being with the galaxy itself. We were guardians, keepers of balance. When stars were born, we guided their light. When worlds fell into chaos, we brought harmony. Why did you disappear? Without that connection, we could not maintain our physical forms. One by one, my brothers and sisters faded away. We poured what remained of ourselves into these Heartstones, hoping that someday, someone might restore us. Do not be sorry, young one. You have given me hope for the first time in ages. You can hear me, speak with me. That is more than I have had in thousands of years. He attended his classes, studied in the library, and worked on his research projects. But every free moment he spent talking with Kelvaroth. The dragon became his teacher, sharing knowledge that no book could contain. Marcus learned to keep their conversations private. He would sit in his room or find quiet corners of the station where nobody would see him talking to what looked like an ordinary sphere. Other students already thought he was strange for studying dead civilizations. He didn't need them thinking he had lost his mind. Why can I hear you when others couldn't? Marcus asked one evening. He sat cross-legged on his bed, the Heartstone resting on a pillow in front of him. Your species has a rare gift, Kelvaroth replied. Humans form bonds easily. You connect with other beings in ways that most species cannot. You reach across differences of culture, language, and form. This same ability allows you to touch the cosmic threads, even though you don't know you're doing it. Humans were still new to the galactic community. Only 3 generations had passed since first contact. Most alien species treated humans with polite distance, unsure what to make of these energetic newcomers who seemed interested in everything and everyone. Could you teach me, Marcus asked, to understand these cosmic threads? Not completely as we once were, but enough to walk among the stars again, to speak with more than just one person. If you could gather 4 Heartstones together in one place, their combined power might be enough to give one dragon physical form again. I know where 3 other stones might be, though the paths to them will not be easy. Kelvaroth's voice became serious. Scattered across the galaxy, hidden in collections, buried in ruins, lost in the chaos of time. But Marcus, you must understand the danger. Not everyone would welcome a dragon's return. We were powerful beings. Some civilizations remember us with fear. They might try to destroy the Heartstones rather than allow us to awaken. Finding 3 more Heartstones would mean traveling to distant worlds. It would mean putting his studies on hold, maybe even dropping out of the university. It would definitely mean danger, but he also thought about what it could mean for humanity. The galactic community didn't respect humans yet. They saw Earth's people as children, too young and inexperienced to understand the complex politics between the stars. Having a celestial dragon as an ally, a being of ancient wisdom who chose to work with humans, could change everything. Tell me where to start, Marcus said, turning back to the glowing sphere. Are you certain? Kelvaroth asked. This journey will change your life forever. This is the greatest lost story in the galaxy. Her stone was last recorded in the archives of Thal, a moon-sized library maintained by the archivist species. It was catalogued there centuries ago, then disappeared from the records. We must trace where it went. The archives of Thal. I've read about that place. It's supposed to hold information from thousands of civilizations. Humans may be young, but you have something many older species have lost. Tomorrow, I'll request permission to visit the archives. I'll tell my professors it's for my research thesis. His quiet life of studying old texts was about to become an adventure across the stars. And somewhere out there, 3 more dragon heart stones waited to be found. 2 weeks later, Marcus arrived at the archives of Thal. The ancient library orbited a quiet star in a sector dedicated to preserving knowledge. The structure was massive, built into an entire moon. Towers of crystalline material rose from the surface, each one containing billions of records from civilizations across the galaxy. Marcus felt small as his shuttle approached the landing platform. He had never seen anything so grand. The archives made his university look like a tiny closet in comparison. Remember, Kelvaroth's voice whispered in his mind, the archivists value patience and respect. They are scholars like you. Speak to them with honesty about your research. The celestial dragons had existed long before any current species reached the stars. An archivist met him at the entrance. The being had a tall, thin body covered in pale blue skin. 6 tentacles extended from its shoulders, each one capable of holding and reading different materials at once. Large, gentle eyes studied Marcus with curiosity. "Welcome, young human," the archivist said in a soft voice. "I am Keeper Tholas. We received your research request. You wish to study the records of ancient guardian species. The dragons, most beings consider them myths. Why does a human student interest himself in such old legends?" "I believe the celestial dragons were real, and I want to understand what happened to them. Most researchers give up when I tell them our dragon records are written in languages older than the current galactic calendar. I'm good with languages." Finally, they reached a chamber filled with records from the time before the silence. Tholas's tentacles moved across control panels, calling up files that hadn't been accessed in centuries. "Here," the archivist said, "everything we have about the celestial dragons. Be warned, young human. Much of this material is fragmentary and contradictory." The amber glow was dim, barely visible. "Now comes the difficult part," Kelvaroth said quietly. "We must search through thousands of records. Look for any mention of Valrana's heartstone. It was blue with silver markings about the same size as mine." Hours turned into days. He learned to read ancient scripts with Kelvaroth's guidance, the dragon translating languages that no living being remembered. The work was exhausting but fascinating. Marcus discovered stories of the dragons helping young civilizations, mediating conflicts between species, and protecting worlds from cosmic disasters. On the 5th day, he found something useful. A catalog entry from 800 years ago mentioned a blue stone with silver markings. It had been brought to the archives by a merchant ship, cataloged as an unknown artifact, and then sold when the archives needed to raise funds for expansion. The merchant's name was Kess of House Talvirian, Marcus read aloud. The stone was sold to a private collector. Now we must trace where it went from there. Keeper Tholas noticed his dedication and began helping, curious about what drove this young human to work such long hours without complaint. "Your species is remarkably stubborn," Tholas observed one evening, bringing Marcus a nutrient drink. "Most researchers would have given up by now." "Yes, I suppose that is more positive." A wealthy collector named Kess, who lived on Nexus Prime, a planet known for its luxury and excess. Marcus thanked Keeper Tholas for all the help and prepared to leave the archives. Before he departed, the archivist gave him one final piece of advice. "Whatever you are truly seeking, young Marcus, I hope you find it. Your dedication reminds me why we preserve knowledge in the first place, so beings like you can discover truths that others have forgotten." Marcus used the time to plan his approach. He had almost no money. His student savings wouldn't be enough to buy anything from a wealthy collector. He needed a different strategy. "You must convince Kess of the Heartstone's true value," Kelvaroth advised. Not its price in credits, but its importance to the galaxy's history. Finding Kess's estate was easy. The collector was famous on Nexus Prime. Getting an appointment to meet him was much harder. Marcus sent messages for days before receiving a response. The message was brief. I meet with scholars on second-day evenings. You have 10 minutes to interest me. Do not waste my time. Are you ready? Kelvaroth asked. Ready, Marcus confirmed, holding the Heartstone close. Let's go find your sister. The building stood on a hillside overlooking the city, surrounded by gardens filled with crystalline sculptures. Guards checked his identification at the gate, then allowed him to enter. A servant led Marcus through halls decorated with treasures from across the galaxy. He saw paintings that moved with light, instruments that played themselves, and containers holding objects he couldn't identify. Every item was rare and expensive. Kess waited in a garden at the center of the estate. The Talvirian was tall and elegant, with 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face. His skin was a deep purple color, and he wore robes made from fabric that shifted colors as he moved. You are the human student, Kess said, his voice smooth and educated. Sit. You have 10 minutes. A blue stone with silver markings about this size. Marcus held up his hands to show the dimensions. Your family purchased it from the archives of Thal 800 years ago. It sits in my collection. Why would a human student want such an item? Not just its age or where it came from, but its true purpose and meaning. This is a celestial dragon heartstone, Marcus explained. The essence of an ancient guardian named Kelvaroth. The blue stone you own belonged to Velrana, keeper of knowledge. These aren't just artifacts. They're living beings, waiting to be restored. Kelvaroth occasionally added details through Marcus, his ancient voice giving weight to the story. Kess listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, the collector stood and walked to a display case. Inside, the blue heartstone rested on a pillow of white silk. Silver patterns swirled across its surface, catching the garden's light. I have owned this stone for 20 years, Kess said quietly. I always felt it was special, more than just a curiosity, but I never imagined this. He turned to face Marcus. If what you say is true, this artifact belongs in active hands, not locked in my collection gathering dust. No profit, just the original cost. Use your skills as a translator and scholar. I will pay you fairly. When you have earned enough, the stone is yours. He translated documents, researched artifacts for clients, and helped negotiate deals with collectors from other worlds. The work was interesting and Kess was a good employer, but progress was slow. Then everything changed. Marcus was leaving Kess's estate one evening when a figure stepped from the shadows. The being was Kryn, a species known for their military strength. The Kryn Dominion controlled several sectors and had a reputation for being aggressive. You are Marcus Chen, the Kryn said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Marcus replied carefully. Can I help you? This is not a request. The celestial dragons once stopped my people's expansion across the galaxy. They forced us to accept boundaries and peace treaties. The Dominion remembers. We will not allow dragons to return and limit us again. The galaxy needs their wisdom now, especially with so much conflict between species. You have 1 day to surrender the stones, or we will take them by force. The Kryn Dominion knows about our plan, Marcus explained. They want to destroy the Heartstones. Word of Marcus's quest had spread through the scholar community. Keeper Tholas from the archives sent a message of support. A Vexian pilot who had transported Marcus to Nexus Prime offered her ship. Even a young Kryn, a dissenter who disagreed with her government's aggressive policies, contacted him privately. I believe the Dominion has lost its way, she wrote. We used to value honor and wisdom. Now we only seek power. If the dragons can remind us of better values, I will help you. Kes became their main supporter, using his wealth to provide resources. "This is what humans do best," Kelvaroth observed. "You inspire others to hope. You build bridges between beings who would never normally work together." "We have 2 heart stones now," Marcus said to the group. "2 more to find, but the Dominion will be watching every move we make. And we move together." Keeper Tholas provided research about the ruins. Even Kes came along, fascinated by the adventure. The 4th and final Heartstone was the most difficult. It rested in a Kryn military vault, heavily guarded and protected by the best security the Dominion could provide. The young Kryn dissenter, whose name was Vecra, brought them crucial information about the vault's location and defenses. "This is impossible," Sareth said, looking at the security plans. "Even if we could get inside, we'd never get out." Vecra had connections within the Kryn government, officials who were tired of constant conflict and expansion. These moderate voices had been growing stronger, worried that the Dominion's aggressive policies would eventually lead to war with the entire galaxy. Marcus arranged a meeting with these officials on a neutral space station. It took all of Kes's influence and Keeper Tholas's reputation to make it happen. Representatives from a dozen different species attended, curious about this human student who had somehow convinced sworn enemies to sit at the same table. Marcus stood before the assembly, the 3 heartstones arranged on a table in front of him. They glowed softly, amber, blue, and green, their light casting gentle colors across the room. "For 10,000 years, the galaxy has existed without the celestial dragons," Marcus began. "We've had wars, conflicts, and misunderstandings between species. We've built empires and watched them fall. But we've forgotten what the dragons represented: balance, wisdom, and the understanding that all species have value. They prevented us from claiming worlds that should have been ours. The dragons understood that difference. Now we have become bullies who take from those who cannot defend themselves. Perhaps we need the dragons to remind us of who we truly are." But Vecra's courage inspired others to speak their truth. For hours they debated. Marcus answered questions, told stories, and shared Kelvaroth's wisdom. Keeper Tholas explained the historical importance of the dragons. Kes spoke about preserving knowledge for future generations instead of destroying it out of fear. Finally, one of the moderate Kryn officials made a proposal. "Let the human prove his claims. If bringing the 4 heartstones together truly restores a dragon, then we will know the legends are real. If nothing happens, the stones will be returned to proper custody." The Kryn military retrieved the 4th heartstone from their vault under heavy guard and brought it to the neutral station. Security surrounded them as Marcus prepared for the most important moment of his life. His team stood close by. Sareth checked her equipment nervously. Tholas's tentacles moved in patterns of anticipation. Kes watched with barely contained excitement. Vecra stood straight and proud, knowing she had risked everything for this moment. Marcus placed the 4 heartstones in a square pattern on the floor. Amber, blue, green, and silver, each one representing a different dragon, a different aspect of cosmic balance. The stones began to glow brighter as they came near each other. "Thank you, Marcus Chen," Kelvaroth's voice filled his mind one last time. "Thank you for believing when no one else would. Thank you for your persistence, your courage, and your gift for bringing others together. What you have done will change the galaxy forever." The beams connected, forming a pattern of pure energy that rose toward the ceiling. The assembled beings watched in amazement as the light took shape, becoming solid and real. Kelvaroth emerged from the brilliance. He was smaller than the ancient legends described, no longer the massive creature who had moved between stars, but he was magnificent nonetheless. His body was formed of golden energy that shimmered like sunlight on water. Wings of pure light spread from his shoulders. His eyes held the wisdom of ages, gentle and powerful at once. "I am Kelvaroth," the dragon spoke, and his voice resonated throughout the station. Everyone could hear him now, not just Marcus. "I am the last of the celestial dragons, reborn through the efforts of beings who chose hope over fear, cooperation over conflict. I return to remind you of simple truths that you have forgotten. The galaxy is vast enough for all species. Strength comes not from conquest, but from protecting others. Wisdom means understanding that different beings can work together toward common goals." He built friendships across impossible distances. He persisted when others would have given up. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy. The stubborn belief that impossible things can become real if you work hard enough and believe strongly enough. Even those who had been skeptical found themselves moved by the dragon's presence and words. The Galactic Council, which had sent observers to the meeting, began discussing humanity's role among the stars with new respect. A species that could restore what was thought forever lost deserved recognition. Marcus returned to his studies eventually, but now as the official liaison to the first celestial dragon seen in 10 millennia. Kelvaroth chose to make his home near human space, a guardian reborn through the determination of a young student who had bought a forgotten artifact in a dusty shop. And across the galaxy, people began to remember that sometimes the most powerful force isn't military strength or advanced technology. Sometimes it's simply believing that lost things can be found, that broken things can be restored, and that hope, patience, and friendship can achieve what force never could. The Heartstones had been reunited. The dragon had awakened. And Marcus Chen, a simple student of history, had proven that even the smallest voice could change the entire galaxy. If that voice spoke with truth, courage, and unwavering hope. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.